Good morning traders, welcome to another exciting RMD weekly market overview. This week we'll be looking at the breakouts we have seen happening all across the board last week, and we'll discuss possible new targets and trading opportunities. I'm going to let the disclaimer roll and I will see you in the charts. Starting with the US dollar to South African rand. As expected, last week the Reserve Bank cut the repo rate by 25 basis points, so no real surprises there. We can see that the US dollar South African rand is still in its downtrend, and the trend has not yet been broken, as can be seen from the overhead diagonal resistance line. And we can also see that we have the 100 SMA on the 4-hour acting as a dynamic area of resistance, and that is where the price has been rejected off. Currently we are above the 50 SMA on the 4-hour and also above the area of 16 Rand 65, which is also an interim area of support. And just looking at our weekly pivots, we can see that the new weekly pivot for this week is calculating at the same level around 16 Rand 60. And this means that if we can stay above this level, there is a chance that we might break above this area of resistance. Of course, we need to get above this 100 SMA on the 4-hour, and that might take us then to around about the 17 Rand 10 level, which is our monthly pivot level. Although it's also worth noting that we do have our 200 SMA at the 17 Rand area, so that is also an area that might act as additional resistance. Just looking at areas of support, should price break lower and move back into this channel, I believe that the first area to look out for would be this 16 Rand 55 area. That would be the 2020 SMA, as well as this area of previous support. That's the line there we have in purple. And that would also be, well, the next level of support would then be, of course, our 16 Rand 40 level, which is our weekly S1 area of support. Moving on now to EURUSD. The EURUSD saw a lot of bullish price action last week, with our target as set at 1.55 being breached, price coming back to retest this area. This area now, along with our weekly pivot as well as the monthly R2 at 1.17, will now become an area of immediate support. So should we expect a pullback, we can expect price to come back into this area and to retest this area. We have some additional support sitting at our monthly R1 pivot level, as well as our weekly S1 pivot level at 1.140. That will also probably coincide with this dynamic area of support, being 50 simple moving average, and also looking for some stretch targets should price continue on its bullish momentum. We can expect price to likely reach this 1.173 area, as that will be a confluence area of both our monthly R3 pivot level as well as our weekly R1 pivot level. So just looking at the upcoming news events and our economic calendar, you can see there's quite a full economic calendar ahead, with figures on Monday as well as on Tuesday, and even on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. Yes, so literally each day of the week do have some high impact news events to look out for. So keep an eye on those and keep an eye on those levels. Moving on to the GBPUSD. The GBPUSD saw some further consolidation last week between the breakout level at 1.266. That area now has become an area of support, and then we also had this area of resistance at 1.275. We did see that level being broke end of last week on Friday, with 2 4-hour candles closing above that level, meaning that would be a new area of support. So just considering some new targets for the week, we can see that we have a target at 1.289. That will be our weekly R1 pivot, as well as a previous area of resistance. So I'll have to go quite far back to actually see that level, but I'm going to quickly take you to the daily time frame. and show you that we do have a target over there. There's the little purple line, and as you can see, that is also a previous area of resistance as well as support, depending on which side of it we've been trading. So that could be a potential next area of resistance. And just heading back to the 4 hour, and I just want to re-enable those pivots. We can see that the new area of support now is that area between that previous area of resistance being the new area of support, and of course our weekly pivot at 2.70. So this is now a support area with a potential new upside target at 1.289. Looking now at the Australian dollar USD, also saw a very strong bullish rally breaking through the monthly R1 pivot level, coming back to retest that area and closing right on that monthly pivot on Friday. We can expect new upside targets to be in the area of 0.72. That is our weekly R1 pivot, and then we do have an additional stretch target at our monthly R2 pivot at 0.729, also coinciding with our weekly R2 pivot. And if we do look at Ekomoto number theory, and if we consider some of those targets in Ekomoto wave theory, you can see there was our previous move, that was the move up. Then we saw a retest of this, that would be the breakout area. And of course, if we now were to project that back up, we can see that it almost brings us to that monthly R2 level as well as our weekly pivot level. So that is what I'm saying. That would be an additional stretch target if we manage to clear the 0.72 area. Just considering areas of support, the area of support would be the area between 0.703, which was a breakout point over here, and of course then our monthly pivot at this area at 0.709, which is the weekly pivot and monthly R1 pivot. Those would be our areas to look out for, and I just want to fix your attention on the fact that we do have some events, economic events affecting the Australian dollar on Tuesday as well as Wednesday, so just keep an eye out on those as well. And moving on to the S&P 500. The S&P 500 also saw some bullish price action last week, reaching a high of 3,293. Although we then saw price being rejected from that level, heading back down to the diagonal support and only finding support on the weekly pivot level, which coincided and found some additional confluence with the 4-hour 100 SMA. So that would be the area to keep an eye out for at this stage. Of course, should we see bullish price action above our 4-hour 100 SMA, and even if we should also, of course, be able to get above our weekly pivot at 3,235, so that would probably be the immediate target. So we need to get the price back above this diagonal support. So there's the dark red line that you can see over here. So we need to get price above that line to see some further upside targets, and should we get above that diagonal as well as that weekly pivot, we can expect to see our weekly R1 pivot at 3,270 being tested. And of course, if we manage to break that, the next area to be retested would be that 3,350 area. That is our weekly R2 pivot. Of course, should we continue to see more bearish action, for instance, if price were to maybe retest this pivot level and then reject this bullish diagonal, that would mean that the bullish trend has been broken. And of course, if we manage to break below that 100 SMA as well, price would head lower, firstly to that weekly S1 pivot at 3,175, and then probably to this area of 3,140 to 3,150, as that is where you'll find some additional confluence of both the 200 SMA on the 4-hour and that weekly S2 pivot. And moving on to Brent crude oil. So our consolidation has finally been broken, with the area that we've pointed out quite a few times over the last couple of weeks at $43.50 has finally been broken with quite a strong bullish candle. Price heading right up to that monthly R1 pivot level, but that was sitting at 44.75. That high being registered at 44.84. Still just shy of that $45 area where our gap was sitting. We can see that price did make 2 attempts to break higher, although it did in the end can come back to that 4-hour 100 SMA, and that is where price is currently finding itself. That is on the $43.10 area. Our weekly pivot level is projected to be right above that on the 50 SMA on the 4-hour at $43.50. So again, this area becomes the key level to keep an eye out for. And of course, should we manage to get back above it, I suspect that it's likely that we will retest, first of all, our previous high at 44, let's call it 75, and then perhaps a quick tag to that $45 area where our gap was sitting. But of course, should we not be able to get back above our weekly pivot and reject this $43.50 area, we will see price move back down, firstly to the weekly S1 pivot at $42.20, and I'm pretty sure that our 4-hour 200 SMA will probably meet up in this $41.90 to $42 area. So that would be the area of support. And of course, we still have a very strong support at $41. That would be our monthly support level should price break even lower to that area. And then of course, as I've mentioned earlier in the video, there is crude oil inventories on Wednesday. So just keep an eye out for that as well. Looking now at gold. What a spectacular breakout we saw after this consolidation for gold, with our target as set out in our weekly market overview video at 1,840 being the area over here, being absolutely crushed, with price continuing higher and only finding resistance at this diagonal area. And that's the area, if we just quickly zoom out to the daily, we can see that is an area that has been identified through this channel that goes back and extends back to early 2019 or early last year from 22 Feb. We can see that that's the area that has been tested. And just looking at what we can expect for the week to come, I'd say that should price pull back, the first area to look out for would be this 1,870 level, as that would be our weekly pivot level. The next area that we could perhaps expect price to pull back to would be where our 50 SMA on the 4-hour would meet up with our monthly R1 pivot level, as well as our weekly S1 pivot level at 1,822. And it's also likely, depending on when in the week that happens, it will also start to meet up with our 100 SMA on the 4-hour. And of course, should for any reason price do manage to break above this overhead area of resistance, I suspect it will find additional resistance at 1,935. Although I would like to note that although price did close on $1,900, this is a very strong area of overhead resistance, and at this stage a pullback would be likely, and it's worth perhaps taking some risk off the table if you have been long in this gold trade. And finally, concluding with Bitcoin USD. Bitcoin breaking through our key level at 9,300, and then, as set out in our market overview video last week, the target of $9,800. We did say that should we see a break above this area, that we can expect targets of 9,800 and above, and that turned out to be spot on. If we have a look at this massive breakout that we saw, and the only thing that managed to stop that was that overhead area of resistance. That would be that purple line that we see over there at 10,222. And if I quickly go to our daily time frame, we can see that that level extends also back quite a while to as far as June last year. So very, very, very important key level that as well. And just trying to understand where we might be going from here onwards. So if we do manage to stay above this diagonal purple line, and we manage to clear, of course, and stay above this monthly R1 pivot at 10,100, it's likely that we could even see targets of 10,220. That is that purple line again, and then the next area to keep an eye out for would be 10,410. So you can see there is our weekly R1 pivot at 10,380. So that would be a stretch target should the bullish price action continue, and we continue to hold above this weekly pivot level at 9,750 and our diagonal. So yeah, let's see what Bitcoin does. Just keep in mind that a pullback will probably take us, and if we just let's use Fibonacci, why not? If we were to look at a Fibonacci pullback, the 61.8 area will be very close to obviously very close to the 9,500 level. So yeah, depending on how far this price managed to pull back, I expect anything from as I've said, the weekly pivot level at 9,750 to this area at 9,550 to be the area to look out for a pullback and some additional support for Bitcoin. So let's see what happens this week. If you enjoyed this week's video, please remember to subscribe and also hit the notification button to be reminded as soon as we make a new video live. Also, if you're interested in understanding and analyzing the markets in the same way we do each week, just register on our website www.rmdtrader.com to get free access to our comprehensive trading masterclass series free of charge. And until next time, this is John Jacobs for RMD Trader. Trade smart and trade successful.